Alright, so I want to just talk about policies and just like kind of answer some of the questions that we should be discussing. So just for like the policies that families are impacted by a lot of the policies that are in place. So just for example, a lot of the food and nutrition programs that are in place are mostly used by families. A lot of the healthcare programs, the education programs, things like that, they're all pretty much regulated and used for families. The changes that need to be made, well, basically, we just kind of need to start, reducing the amount of births and increase the amount of marriages because, for one, people are typically more financially stable if they're married, or if they at least wait till they're married. Just because if it's a female-headed household, they're more likely to be living in poverty because unfortunately females make a lot less than men. They're also less likely to be educated. It's also important to improve our education system, which we already talked about. But unfortunately, that's not really like an important thing for our government. The one woman, the video we had to watch, she was saying that the government was very open to approving a policy that costs like a lot of money, but when they talked about improving the education, they were very concerned because they didn't have like the funds for it or something like that. And how are you supposed to improve society and improve poverty rates if we're not willing to educate our children who are going to be like in the future and being like our workers in the future? Preschool education and public education. Preschool is kind of where it all begins, so it's kind of like their foundation, which is really important. And just in general, like I think we're already striving to do this, but helping the most disadvantaged mothers and just people in general, families, just because they do face the most barriers. I mean, they're expected to stay home and take care of the kids, but they also have a lower level of education typically. So it's a lot more difficult for them. And then if we talk about the economics of it, let's see, the monetary savings, it says the effect on child outcome. It says reduce child maltreatment. So this is just for certain policies. And it's a lower cost to the child welfare system. It's just, it's the same concept we've been talking about. Basically, if like earlier interventions are going to cost us a lot less to do now than if we were trying to fix them later, or if we, have to imprison them later, or things like that. So it's better to take preventative measures than it is to fix the issue later. And I think that's something that our society definitely lacks. We definitely have issues with. But I think just there's a lot of issues with poverty that society and like communities in general don't take into account, and they don't really take responsibility for them because we tend to think that people are in poverty because they're lazy and because they don't want to work, and it's like a personal issue. And if I've learned one thing throughout being a family development major, it is that poverty is definitely a societal problem. It is not, it's not just a personal problem, although we can say, get a job, do all these things. One, it's not always that easy to get a job. Two, minimum wage jobs are not always going to get you through and help and pay for a family of four or whatever to have a home and food and all these things. So they will need assistance. And I think now that, I mean, our economy has improved, but I think that it's still not great. And I definitely think that as a society we have a responsibility to help those in need. And I think that these policies in place, they need to have stricter, they just need to be followed better, because just like before when we were talking about welfare, people aren't getting their checks, people aren't getting the help that they need when they need it, and so it's really unfortunate.